Hey everybody, Jake here with TrendSpider to go over the weekly video into the last trading day of the month of May, as well as the last trading day of the week. So going into a couple different things, we're going to do a case study looking at SPY from yesterday and the day before and why we knew buyers were definitely in control going into today. And then looking at a couple other different case studies using the Alphatrends anchored VWAP, using the alert system, as well as looking at the scanner and how to use that into the end of the month. So going into SPY, we do have the raindrop and we have the regular candle, left side and the right side. The left side, you can see really the last 2 days when we did finally break out of this broadening formation, you could see something interesting, right? You could see this first candle here. It looks like sellers were definitely in control because we opened up at around 302 and then closed the day below 300. But you could see within this particular candle here that in the raindrop, most of that volume was being absorbed at the top of the range, or at least the top 50% of the range. And remember, the raindrop is there to show you where supply is being absorbed, because we already know that there's selling volume. For every seller, there's a buyer. What we want to know what the raindrop is through these big kind of chunks of volume, or these big kind of bulbs of volume, as you can see here with this candle. We want to know, okay, sellers came in, but where did that demand actually absorb that supply? And you can see, even though the price dropped on this particular day here on May 26th, you can see that the volume was actually being absorbed near the top of the range, even though we closed near the low of the day. And then you can see here, we had the retest of this previous resistance area, now support. And then you could see yesterday the same thing, a lot of that volume near the top of the range. And you could see that confirmation with a close near the high of the day. And then we had our gap up and pretty much a really nice move up today. And the question is, why did we stop right at this 306.70s area? Well, if we go to the 65-minute chart on SPY, you'll see one of the charts that we've been posting all week was this setup here, simply just using a fib and then simply using the anchored volume by price from this low on May 14th. So what I did here was I anchored the volume by price from this hammer. I measured the move from this high here to this low here, from this pretty much little capitulation point. And then what you can see here is, as we started to break out, this volume shelf was forming, showing that a lot of volume was holding in this area. Price was able to then gap up the next day, and then finally we were able to move up to the 1.618. And you can see here today that my alert went off for the 1.618 here, and notice that we didn't actually hit the exact area. We were a few cents off, and that's why this purple area is crucial, because I was able to be alerted whenever the 10-minute candle, or excuse me, the 5-minute candle was closing anywhere within this purple area. So remember, we're on the 65-minute candle, but I had the alert set for the 5-minute candle to trigger whenever it closed in this purple area, and then we were able to be alerted when SPY was getting a little hot today, and notice that it did pull back here. So that was a really cool case study using fibs, using the 1.618 extension along with the alert system here. So definitely wanted to point that out if you were wondering, okay, why did we stop here on the daily? What was significant about this? Well, you had to go into the 65-minute chart. You saw that we almost tagged this 1.618 fib extension perfectly from this measured move here. So going into another example here, showing the raindrops versus the hollow candles, I want to go over Delta from last week. You'll see Delta was a really cool case study that we had mentioned and talked about as really a discrepancy last week, where essentially we had this breakout, but we had this really bearish candle on May 19th. However, if you compare that to the raindrop, you would have seen that a lot of that selling pressure was absorbed by buyers at the top of the range. So remember, we know all of this volume on any raindrop is selling pressure or selling volume, because for every buyer there needs to be a seller. We want to know where those buyers step in to absorb that supply, absorb that selling. You can see here in this candle, there was that discrepancy. Buyers were in control as far as volume goes. Sellers were in control simply just based if you're looking at just price action. And you can see that with a green raindrop and a red hollow candle, you can see that this discrepancy did actually show a really strong move to the upside from around 22 all the way up to almost 28 over a week. So that was something that I wanted to point out from last week that was really cool to see. And then going into one case study today that was just something we've been really talking about recently was GE. We were talking that GE was this laggard using the anchored VWAP from this high in February. Remember, we were saying that GE had not hit this area yet, whereas SPY, some of these other name, or SPY, QQQ, some of these other names like Disney, even Boeing, they were all hitting this anchored VWAP, and then GE finally barely missed it today. I was personally trading this, and originally this thing has been just a nightmare. I was chopped up a couple times, finally went into a very heavy position when there was conviction here, and then was able to sell yesterday. I got back in at the end of the day yesterday because I was like, I think this thing's going to tag the anchored VWAP. We opened up. I was only able to sell half of my position because this thing just dropped so quickly. I bought into close yesterday at 732. Was able to flip 2,500 shares at 742. So I was able to flip it for 10 cents. But the other 2,500 shares I did not sell, and kind of actually went back to scaling in mode as this gap filled below. The gap below at 650 could also fill, but look where we're back at. We're back at this huge base of volume. And then if you go to that monthly candle, that's the main thing to really look at into the rest of the week, which is just one more day. But if you look at GE, if you look at some of these other ones, we still have this really intriguing monthly candle setup here with a lot of this volume, at least for GE, way up here in the $10 range, which will act as a magnet above. We'll have to see. GE just had some news about someone suing them for fraudulent tax something in the UK. Is that going to be a make or break here on the fundamental side? We'll have to see. But from a monthly perspective, you do have this interesting doji forming. But remember, we still have tomorrow left. This does not necessarily mean this is going to close like this. And this takes me into really the last part of today's video, which is using the scanner to check for these monthly either MACD crosses, RSI crosses. So notice here, you can see on the S&P 500, I simply just did a monthly MACD cross. And what I did was I turned on the current candle. So that means into tomorrow, I'm scanning for MACD crosses that are in force, meaning that the MACD is currently crossing for May, but it hasn't closed yet. So notice here how I've got this list of stocks that are showing a MACD cross here. You can see this ITW barely crossing. TMO here you can see crossing. I don't even know what TMO is, but you can see here, I guess Thermo Fisher. I didn't know that was the ticker, but you can see, I'm finding some of these symbols that I wouldn't necessarily have found without having the scanner here, especially into the last day of the month. Because remember, just because this MACD is crossing here does not mean that we're actually going to cross into tomorrow, because tomorrow's candle still has to close. But if you want to get a little bit of a head start and you want to see which, let's say, MACD monthly crosses are potentially happening into tomorrow, this is where you can use that current candle. So thank you everyone so much. Make sure to tune in this weekend. We have a live stream that we're going to do doing chart requests on Saturday morning. We decided that we're just going to do it today, so it is a last minute thing. Make sure to also check out the sale going on until Saturday night. You can get 35% off TrendSpider using the code TSM30. So make sure to also check that out. And thank you so much for watching today's video, and have a great rest of the trading week into Friday.